Hello everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to a stream. Sorry for missing the last stream. Obviously, I was away from all my setups, really, even laptops and stuff, just because I was on a short trip with family, and a lot of birthdays were had during those days too. Not the greatest game week, if I'm being honest. Had a pretty bad game week due to Mr. Mo Salah, but we are here for GW20. So thank you guys so much for joining the stream, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful start to your weekends. FPL us, thank you so much. Yeah, it was my birthday and then actually my wife's birthday, so yeah, pretty good reason to miss the stream, I suppose. That was the first stream that I did miss this year. Um, Other people in chat, I hope you guys are doing well. Just gonna quickly have a quick skim through some of the chat messages. So, morning, Richard. Thanks, Vio. Crunch 89. Yeah, absolutely right. Can't wait for the Spurs Newcastle game. I mean, crazy how fast the markets have reacted to these leaks, right? You know, there's nothing official. Apart from, I think, the news that there were 7 first teamers training for Spurs yesterday, and the markets have reacted very harshly. So, you know, as ever, this is a great time to be playing your Newcastle defenders. You know, arrest me because I'm gonna bench Hall again. Um, it's also a great time to be investing into an Anthony Gordon. I'm still a little bit cold on Jacob Murphy just because I do think his medium to long term minutes are poor. But to be honest, the gamble for Jacob Murphy does make a lot of sense in the short term because the next 5, 6, 7 fixtures for Newcastle are just splendid. So it is an interesting sort of dilemma. But yeah, this is a great week to really move into these Newcastle picks. And you know, someone might be asking me like, am I still going to play João Pedro over Hall? Absolutely, I still am. Because it still seems like for the most part the Spurs attack is intact, right? So that sort of expectation that the clean sheet is lost, I think, is still there. But yeah, who says Hall can't get attacking returns, etc., etc. So yeah, Hall's moved up in the order, I suppose, in terms of priority, but still not enough for me to do anything about it in terms of his position versus João Pedro. Let's see. So Peter, hope you're well. Bailey, start Hall or Pedro. I personally would start Pedro. The way I see it is Pedro always has a lot of value as a 95-minute type of attacker, as well as someone who's just on penalties. So whilst Arsenal are the best defense in the league, I still think there's a lot of value to having a Pedro start. Not to mention that once again, Spurs' offense is still pretty resolute. So that's something that's quite significant for me. Ralph says, hi, Fran, start Johnson or Lewis. I'd probably... It's an interesting one, to be honest. I think Brennan Johnson's going to start today, right? So that kind of makes it quite interesting because I would say if Brennan Johnson can play something like, I don't know, 75 minutes of football, I think that's pretty close to Lewis, to be honest. And I would actually play Brennan Johnson over Lewis on that basis. Lewis has a great fixture, right? There's no denying that kind of fact. But I think Lewis will start. There's still a small chance, I suppose, that someone like, let's say, Akanji, Ake, and Walker can play, and that allows you to bench Lewis. But I think that's very, very unlikely. I think I would probably play Brennan Johnson, though, just because he's assumed to start. Other questions in chat. So start Munoz or Ahmad. I would start... Honestly, I'd probably still start Ahmad. I'd still probably start the attacker in this situation. It's not a great game for Ahmed. Like, it's actually just a pretty horrendous game, if I'm completely honest. But I still think he's going to play 90 minutes. I just don't think that they actually have anyone, you know, who can really compete with his minutes right now. They just lack players. And so I'd probably still take the punt on Ahmed. It depends also whether you have Liverpool defense. So you might, for example, still start Munoz because you want a preferable outcome for owning Trent, for example, and you're trying to maximize the kind of outcome variance that you have. So if you are, let's say, a Liverpool defense owner, then maybe it makes sense to play Munoz in that situation. But I would generally start Ahmad in this case, but it's close. Buenos dias as well. Best vice captain. I think Isak's the best, but I mean, if you don't have one of these options, I'd probably go for Palmer. Flores says, morning, Fran. Who to bench out of Konsa, Gabriel Kirkes? Ooh, tough one there, actually. I think Konsa's actually got a better game than Gabriel. I mean, I might actually bench Gabriel in that situation, to be honest. Yeah, I think actually it's Gabriel bench. It is an away game for Arsenal, which is significant. Would you start Enzo over Munoz? I probably would. Is it not worth it playing a back four with Hall playing rather than... I mean, I have no issues with playing a back four. Next week, I'm definitely playing a back four, but I still think that my intuition is that Tottenham will break the clean sheet of Newcastle. So on that basis, it makes a lot more sense for me to go for João Pedro. Nick YouTube has gone from Odegaard to Gordon. I think that makes a lot of sense as a move. I can understand people doing that. Anish, thank you so much for the super chat. Sorry, there's something wrong with my chat. It's a little bit bugged. But Anish, thank you so much for the super chat. Your team is Leno, Trent, Kirkes, Milenkovic. Nice team. Mid is Salah, Palmer, Martinelli, Sarr. Good as well. Forwards, Pedro, Wood, Isak, Bent, Dubravka, Rogers, Timber, Davis. Yeah, I think that's a great team, to be honest. I guess the question going forwards is, Arsenal's next 3 matches after Timber's suspension are very good. But I suppose you always have the opportunity of moving Timber into a third Liverpool defender. Maybe around 24, 25, because 24 is not a very good Arsenal fixture anyway. So I can kind of see the appeal of maybe selling Timber around then. If you would like to get some sort of upside from the sort of doubles. But it's a very strong team for now. No complaints. And to be honest, Rogers is a very fine hold as well. Martinelli is actually looking like his minutes are still really good, depending on what their sort of future signings will be. But yeah, for now, I think you can kind of hold this team. Like, for example, Martinelli, the soonest you're going to move him on is probably 21. Sarr, you're probably never going to touch until, let's say, blank game week 29. Rogers, same thing there. So generally speaking, I like the structure. There's obviously a couple of players a few weeks down the line that could be quite interesting, like, for example, Solanke. Especially if Son continues to play less football. Solanke's probably more of a penalty taker. Why not captain Isak? I mean, at the end of the day, it's Mo Salah at home versus a pretty poor team. So for me, I'm going to be Salah captaining. It's that simple. If it was sort of a bit, if I probably held, if let's say Newcastle were playing at home and we got genuine confirmation that Spurs are going to play like, Dorrington and a couple other players like this. It seems like most of the leaked or rumored lineups that I would say, I wouldn't say leak, there's no leak, but the rumored lineups from Spurs that I can see still have Archie Gray and Dragusin. And to be fair, a lot of people will say, why not? But yeah, I mean, Salah as well. FPL Yellow Army, morning, hope you're well. Got a Fulham defender on the menu, but would you do Timber to Robinson or Semedo to Castagna? Bench Timber, Ahmad Rogers. I mean, I think it really depends, right? So if you're making a Timber out move, you probably need to have a little bit more defensive depth. Like, for example, if you were someone who owned double Arsenal defense and you're suddenly moving out of it, I think the Timber move makes a bit more sense. I'd probably still just do the Semedo move personally to Castagna, and I think that's fine, benching Timber, Ahmad Rogers. Now, if you're really concerned about that Liverpool game being suspended, then we can have that discussion, but I don't think I'm going to make plans in FPL based on maybe, let's say, a 10% chance that the Liverpool game gets postponed. Kim, thank you so much for the super chat. Hi, Fran. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well. I'm going Castagna and Eze for Lewis and Enzo. Thanks for all the info. Best wishes and health. Love and FPL. Same with you. Castagna Eze is perfectly fine. Selling Lewis and Enzo is also perfectly fine. I think one of the things with Lewis is, this is a good fixture on paper. Once again, West Ham at home. But ultimately, there's going to be games coming up where you have Brentford or even, let's say, what are the other matchups that City have where he could arguably be benched? So I'm looking at Brentford that he could be benched in. And then obviously you've got still some of those other calendar fixtures where he could be benched in, and he has been benched in previously, right? So for example, Chelsea, he did play at that sort of season opener, but he's probably going to miss out on a game like Arsenal. And generally, it's going to be tough going forwards, I think, to guess his minutes if players like come back. And so, yeah, I think selling Lewis. I did the same thing as well last week, selling Lewis. And I don't really have regrets about it other than the lack of points that I got from Munoz. Eze or João Pedro, who to start? I think Eze is very easily the one to start. Should I do Mateta to Watkins? If you do Mateta to Watkins, I would really like you to have multiple free transfers because you never know what Duran's going to do to Watkins' minutes. But Watkins had a great game last time out, and if he does well again versus Leicester, he might just continue starting for now. So I do think Watkins is actually quite an interesting shout. Is he really worth a free transfer? I'd say no, but if you have that luxury sort of bank of free transfers, then that's a different discussion. Dean or Konsa for next 4 game weeks, I'd probably still go Konsa, right? Because I know Dean's been starting a lot of the games, but we've got Champions League around the corner again, and I probably wouldn't mess around with those kind of minutes. So I'd probably just do Konsa. Bench 1, Castagna, Ismail Sarr. I'd bench Sarr. Happy New Year, Fran. Start Colwell or Mikolenko. I'd probably start Colwell. I just think Bournemouth away is a tough match ultimately. Morning, Fran. Would you take a -4? Brossy says to do Foden to Gordon and JP to Wood. I don't think it's worth a -4. I don't even think JP to Wood should be used as a free transfer as it is, right? If you want to do Foden to Gordon, that's fine with me. If you want to do JP to Wood, I actually don't really like it. What's my opinion on Mateta? I think he's still a great pick in FPL. Do I think he's, for example, when he started or when he ended last season extremely hot and was playing super well, do I think people overrated him a touch? Yeah, but I mean, people could probably throw the same argument back at me with Eze, right? So I think he's pretty solid for his price point considering the next 4 or 5 fixtures. But is he like an absolute long-term hold? I don't think so necessarily. I think he's someone that you probably want to, you know, persist with up until basically game week, let's say 25, which is that Everton at home game, or maybe you can even bin before he plays United. And that's sort of how I see Mateta. Someone that isn't, for example, a bit of a season keeper or someone that you plan to stay for a while. Like even Wood, for example, within my own team, I could do with selling him after game week 22 is sort of my general plan if I can go back to Solanke around then. And yeah, that's kind of how I'm working off of how I see Mateta, for example, within the game. I still think João Pedro is great. I think Wood is even arguably still better than Mateta, like on average. But for the next 4 fixtures, I'd probably still want to have Mateta over Wood. So it is pretty close. It also depends on how you rotate as well. So one of the reasons why I've actually gone for Wood is because his bad fixture gave me 21. I'm planning to play a 4-4-2. Mateta to Watkins, I think that's fine if you want to go for it as a move. As I said, I already explained that there's a couple of qualifiers to that move. Wood or Gabriel Jesus? I would actually probably go for Gabriel Jesus. I know I haven't gone for Gabriel Jesus within my own team, but I think it depends on rotation once again, right? So if you have the capacity to, let's say, rotate Jesus, or if you have the capacity to rotate Wood, I think maybe actually Wood looks a little bit less exciting on average. Like Jesus's game week 21 fixtures, Tottenham at home, and honestly, like for the next 6-7 Arsenal fixtures, they're really good. So I'd probably prefer Jesus anyways. But I'm someone who's not really planned to stay owning Wood for a long time, and so I made the move early for Wood, and I'm not sure if Jesus' minutes will actually be perfect, right? There's still a propensity for him to be subbed early in, for example, let's say the Ipswich at home game. Bring in Murphy or Castagna for bench support. I'd probably go Castagna. Thank you so much, FPL Diamond. Really appreciate that. Nice to see you back as well. Top 45k. Awesome. Is 3 Newcastle players too many? I don't think so. I've never been the type of manager who thinks that you can own too much of a team if you think that all the picks are relevant and they're all good, right? If anything, that's sort of a differential that you have, which is probably a positive thing. What I would say actually is the only thing you need to think about is that blank game week 29 could have an impact, right? So if, let's say, Newcastle get a favorable result in that first leg versus Arsenal, then suddenly it looks a little bit more dire for Newcastle picks going up to 29. But the reality is you're probably going to sell most of those Newcastle picks heading up to 29 anyways. Thank you so much, Anthony, as well, for the support. If anyone wants to drop a like, subscribe, that'd be really helpful. That really does support the channel. Oh, I'm on the road to 45k subscribers. I appreciate that, Diamond. Start one when you also Kirkes. I would definitely go Kirkes. I mean, Everton is always an opportunity, I think, where you play your defender against them. Danny says, please help here. Was yes. Bench 1, Gabriel, Semenyo, or Lewis. I'd probably bench Gabriel. I have Foden playing back 4, but fancy 3-4-3. Torn. Yeah, I mean, I'd just bench Gabriel. Bring in Murphy or Castagna. As I said, I'd probably go with Castagna. Trent for a -4. It really depends who you're actually selling to go towards Trent, so that makes it quite different for me. And like, I would answer differently based on who, like, if you would tell me who's going out of your team. Is getting Isak worth a -4? Arguably, I'd say so. Held on to Haaland for too long. The rank is struggling. Honestly, I think that the Haaland owning experience has been just rough, right? Like, you've lost all the flip-flops in terms of captaincies. He hasn't really performed very well. The baselines have dropped as well over this run. So around game week 6, 7, 8, even 9, arguably, like, his underlyings were good, but they have definitely cratered, whereas Salah has just increasingly gotten better and better. So it's very hard to justify keeping Haaland now, to be honest. And as I've always been saying within some of my content, like, I can appreciate some people taking the gamble to go to Haaland for game weeks 19 and 20 specifically, but after 20, you're probably going to be looking towards selling him again. Because what I would say is after 20, I don't see Haaland being, for example, the top captain, like, whatsoever, up until, who knows, like, maybe game week 29, really, honestly, is the next best. Honestly, that is the next best time he's going to be the best captain, and there's really no reason to own Haaland whatsoever. Which two of these would you play? Kukurea, Eze, Raul, Hall. I'd play Raul, just take the punt on the fixture. I'd play Eze as well. I'd play my attackers in this situation, personally. Solanke to Isak for a free transfer. I think that's a super simple move, Joe. I would definitely do it. Wood, Elanga, and Sells from Nottingham. I like all 3 picks, to be fair, but I do think Elanga's minutes could be a little bit dicier in the medium term, right? Right now, it actually looks like he's got good minutes, but with a couple of bodies coming back, then he could lose minutes again. But right now, he actually seems like a really solid pick. The only issue, though, is that those Nottingham Forest fixtures do get worse, right? So if you look at the next, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 matches, there's probably 2 bad games in there, but after that, generally speaking, they do get worse. Hall is keeping a CS today. Honestly, I still think Tottenham will score. That's my assumption. I mean, if I really was thinking that Hall would keep a clean sheet, and to be fair, last week I thought there was a decent chance that he could keep a clean sheet. I just thought that I had better defenders, and this week I think that he's got less of a chance of keeping a clean sheet compared to, let's say, facing off versus United. But ultimately, I'm not going to do it. Sells or Flecken. I mean, I'd probably pick Sells long term, but I'm still eyeing up just simply going for Pickford or Allison for myself. Would you go for Sarr or João Pedro? I'd play João Pedro. Is it worth taking a -4 to get Sarr as a Fran? I don't think that's worth a -4 because it's not even a particularly good game. You know, Chelsea at home is still reasonably tough. Your team is set up really nice. Defense is probably best in the game. Yeah, I think my defense is probably best in class outside of the goalkeeper, right? But even this week, I would say the defense is good. Mantia says, good morning, Fran. Bench 1, Castagna, JP, Colwell. I'd probably bench Colwell, to be honest. Bench 1, João Pedro, Sarr. I'd bench Sarr. I mean, in these kind of niche cases, I would probably just go and start my penalty taker. The only other situation is you've got to factor in your own, for example, ownership of Arsenal defense, that sort of stuff, and make a decision on that as well. Regret selling Mbeumo. I still might sell Mbeumo, so I really don't think that. I mean, Mbeumo has been fantastic, right? I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. He's been a brilliant player. I think the good fixture run really is actually 24 plus, and obviously there's good game week now. I can see the value of myself selling Mbeumo on game week 21 though, which I think I might do. Is sort of my general plan, anyways, because the way I see it, Mbeumo is still 7.7, right? So I probably own him at 7.4 or 7.3. And Eze, I think, is a pretty comparable pick compared to Mbeumo over this run. And it also depends on whether I want to free hit 29 or not. So if, let's say, I disclude game week 29, which is one of the good weeks for Mbeumo, I'd say, because he's one of those picks who actually just plays a game. If I disclude 29, I'd say Eze and Mbeumo are probably quite comparable picks to me over the general run 21 plus. And the way I see it is I could probably just go into an Eze and own him outright, because if you look at, let's say, game week 30 plus, which is the general wildcard suggested sort of window, and I'll do some content on chip strategy after the kind of Carabao Cup games get played, or the first leg of them get played. But if you actually have a look at general strategy, I think most people will be wildcarding on 30, or most people will be wildcarding super late on 35 if you can hold on to your wildcard for a long time. But that still means you have to play Mbumo on those games, and 30, like honestly, 29 plus is just generally poor. Which players would you say are must own other than Salah, Palmer, and Isak? Honestly, I would say Trent maybe, and I think that's it. I would probably say Trent. Bench one Raptor, Falklandy, Fran. I'm not going to do that. Aminel says, out of these four, which two will you start? Enzo, Munoz, Hall, or Hoyson? Or Housen, sorry. I'd probably start Enzo and Housen, to be honest. Start Raul or Rico Lewis. I'd probably still start Raul and hope that he starts. I think it's worth the chance. Hi, Fran. Semenyo to Gordon. I think that's a strong move. Semenyo is still a lovely pick, by the way. So obviously, whenever you're doing a move like Semenyo to Gordon, I would always describe that as a luxury move. Mo, did I miss it? I'm so sorry, Mo, for missing a question. Would you start Smith Rowe over Semenyo? So I actually spoke to, and also apologies for being late on that question. I don't know why it didn't pop up for me, but I spoke to some Fulham fans on this, and it does seem like most people think that Smith Rowe has a pretty good chance of starting. What I would say, though, is that his minutes are always poor. And at the end of the day, his underlying stats aren't really good. So whilst Everton are a really good defense, I think you've always got the faith with someone like Semenyo that he's going to play 89 minutes per match. And that always has a little bit more value than someone who's playing 65, 75 and can be subbed off after that. So I would actually still play Semenyo. But if you really want to go for, I guess like at this point, Smith Rowe has really low ownership. He could be a huge differential. But I also don't think that Semenyo has super high ownership, right? I've seen that he's been getting price falls more so than price rises. So I would personally think that the safer and the simpler pick is just Semenyo in this situation. But yeah, of course, the fixture gamble is always going to be Smith Rowe. Start Lewis Hall. No, I'm going to start João Pedro. It seems like tonight's price rises could be... Is Chris Wood rising again? No, just Isak, right? Yeah. So it seems like Hall, Gordon, Jesus, Wood, Salah, Milenkovic, Robinson, Watkins, Trent, Martinelli all set to rise. Luis Diaz as well. Even Raul actually set to rise potentially again. And Mbumo. Very interesting. Wood or Jackson long term? I'd still say Jackson. Why nobody talk about Aina? I mean, I've always thought that Aina was a good pick. I just have never got towards owning him. But I don't think... I mean, simply, I think the fixtures are getting worse for Nottingham Forest. So Game Week 22 is a pretty nice fixture because you've got Southampton at home. But honestly, outside of that fixture, I think you're looking for, like, if you look at the run, generally speaking, from 23 plus to, I don't know, let's say 29 when they play Ipswich next, I'm not expecting many clean sheets in a lot of those games. Outside of, I don't know, maybe they could squeeze one versus Brighton at home, but it's a pretty poor run overall. So if you've enjoyed Nottingham Forest recently as a defense, then that's fine. But I wouldn't say that they're a defense that we would target for the future. Odegaard to Gordon for a -4. I wouldn't do it for a -4. Sells or Fleck, and I'd go Sells. Free Liverpool and 2 suspended on bench with no free transfers. I mean, I have no idea what your team looks like. So if you have to take hits, that Liverpool game is, I mean, the chances of that being suspended right now, I don't think are very clear. Like, looking at the weather reports, I mean, we have like amber snow reports, but I think it's pretty meaningless. I'm actually quickly just checking the weather report right now. I mean, there's a snow warning. So basically right now it's a yellow warning, and then actually it becomes an amber warning, or it became an amber warning as of yesterday. The issue, of course, is going to be travel, right? So travel delays, and the idea of wanting to ensure that fans are safe and able to travel to the game is why they would suspend this game, as opposed to, I think, the on pitch kind of impacts. Like it's not really like I suppose a Burnley situation, like Burnley Tottenham situation in terms of the pitch was sort of unplayable. But I do think that the travel impact is quite significant, and we're not really going to know what the outcome of that is going to be. So all I can say is, if you own Liverpool players, make sure you have a vice captain, for example, like Isak, first, like who plays in London. Second of all, maybe invest into a bench, but I wouldn't be taking hits to go into a bench. Honestly, if you have to take a hit to kind of have a first bench player, I don't think that's what you need to do in FPL. I think it's fine. You just honestly have to take it on the chin. It would be more double game weeks, right? It would actually probably force Liverpool to actually play a double game week 24 and a double game week 25, which also probably forces us to play assistant manager 24 slot. Start Gabriel or Colwell. I'd start Gabriel. Vice captain and Mbumo, yes or no? I think it's still fine. I personally would prefer Isak myself. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine the weather impact is going to be that severe, but there's still going to be a chance that they still, you know, make decisions based on fans, right? So, yeah. Who would you start, Sar or Trossard? I'd probably start Trossard, to be honest, because I actually think Trossard is likely to start this match. -4 for Gordon. I mean, who for though? Davis to Trent for -4. I think that's fine. Yeah, I don't really mind that -4. Lovely morning to you as well, Gautam. Can you please rate Bruno, Eze, Ode, Sar, and Mbumo in terms of... I mean, if you're starting from this game week, I think that sort of downgrades Bruno's priority, right? But if you're really starting from this game week, I'd say Eze, Mbumo, Sar, Bruno, Odegaard. But like, if we're talking absolute points, like I'm still thinking that Sar is probably going to underscore all the other picks. But if you're just talking in terms of sort of price efficiency, that sort of aspect, I'd probably say, yeah, I'd probably go Eze, then Mbumo, then Sar, then Odegaard, then Bruno, then Odegaard. But or maybe Odegaard if we're factoring this game week, right? Because Liverpool away is really, really poor. But the way I see it is that every game week you have different entry points, right? For example, like Bruno is amazing next week, but then Bruno this week is so bad. Oh, you're starting from next game week. Then yeah, I would put Odegaard last, and I'd put Bruno maybe actually like... I'd probably put Bruno a little bit higher up there. I'd still rate as a... I would actually downgrade Mbumo as well if you're starting from next week, right? Because you're going to discount that Southampton fixture. So I would actually probably go Eze, Bruno, Sar, Mbumo, Odegaard. Monks, thank you so much for the super chat. -8, Timber, Cunha, Foden, to Munoz, Isak, Gordon. I think that's fine. Honestly, you know, you're probably going to regret it because maybe Foden can do really well. Timber is suspended anyways. I don't know whether you really need to do the Munoz move, but it seems like you need to do it because, of course, you need to squeeze the amount of cash available. Munoz is going to be a really good defender going forwards for the long term, so I think that's fine. Frank, you bought Watkins in this week. I don't think that's a mistake. I think it's actually pretty likely that Watkins can start the next few games going on, and so you can benefit from that, and then you can reassess later. Now, since you're already invested into Watkins, there's no point thinking about, you know, what you could have done. At this point, you just sort of build up some free transfers to see whether you need to actually address whether he's going to be a sell if, let's say, Duran takes more minutes away from him going forwards. Human 97, hey Fran, hope you're well. Start 1, Hall, Ahmad, Dibbling, Vandenberg, bench in order. I'd probably start Dibbling, then Hall, then Ahmad, then Vandenberg. I still think so. I still think that, unfortunately, that Brentford defense is shocking. So I'd probably put Vandenberg last. Would you play either Semenyo or JP together with Mikolenko? Yeah, why not? I would personally just play Semenyo and JP, but if you had to play Mykolenko, then I guess sure. I'd still play Semenyo plus Mykolenko like on paper, but if you really want to like, kind of like buy into an outcome where Everton get a clean sheet, then I guess you could play João Pedro. Hi Fran, would you start JP or play 4 at the back and start Lewis instead? I'd probably actually start Lewis over JP. Would you start Aina or Ahmad? I would start Aina. 100% I'd start Aina. Start 2 of Konsa, Enzo, and Rico. I'd say Konsa and Rico. Should I do Diaz to Gordon? I don't think Diaz to Gordon is really worth it as a move. I mean, surely if you're investing into Diaz, you're kind of assuming that he starts versus United, which I think is a perfectly good game. And Mbeumo to Gordon, I think, makes no sense on this week. I mean, frankly, Mbeumo still probably has a better game. Hi, Fran, hope you're well. Considering Ahmad to Gordon for a free, I think that's fine. I think Ahmad to Gordon is just a really good move because you're actually moving into a pick who just consistently is going to have 5 to 6 game weeks straight of good fixtures. So I would go, like, anyone who actually has the luxury of going into Gordon now, I completely appreciate making that move. And I think it's a very strong move. Play 2, Bruno, Hall, Enzo, and Sar. I'd probably actually play Hall. I'd probably still play Enzo and Sar, honestly. You've got Sar as well. Who to start? I know Robinson. I'd start Robinson easily. Hey, Fran, Castagna, Sar, Cucurella, bench 1. I'd bench Cucurella. Bruno to Gordon for a free. I think that's fine. Another question you probably want to ask yourself if you're selling Bruno, though, is what are you going to do with the spare cash, right? So if it's beneficial for you to actually make another sort of upgrading type of move by going Bruno to Gordon, like fair play, go for it. Bench 1 Munoz, Hall, or Ahmad. I'd probably bench one between Munoz or Ahmad. I'd probably bench Munoz. Should I triple captain Salah? I don't think it's really worth the triple captain because you're still going to get a double game week with Salah and you might as well just triple captain him then. So 24-25. Eze versus Savio. I would start Savio easily. Dibbling to Mbeumo for a -4. Ahmad and Zhao on the bench. Is Mbeumo really your best transfer? I would actually, honestly, I would prefer going for Gordon now than Mbeumo. I don't know if that helps you make your decision, though. Because the way I see it, right, is if you look at the Mbeumo fixtures, sure, he's got a better game this week. But honestly, the next 3 after this, I actually think Gordon has much clearer, better fixtures. And then you can actually reassess whether you want to go out of Gordon game week 24 when Mbeumo actually has his next best game, which is basically Tottenham at home. You're going to switch Odegaard to Gordon. I'm probably not going to go Gordon at all. I mean, I think that most people going for Gordon are moving from, I don't know, maybe even arguably Son this week, for example, or from another pick that they're pretty discontent with. But I think that I'm going to move Odegaard after Tottenham at home, which sort of delays the window of whether I really want Gordon or not, right? Because if you think about it, unfortunately, if I go for Gordon on 22+, I'm actually probably better off going for someone like a Bruno or even someone like an Eze on a 23 instead, and actually just keeping Odegaard for the short term, because I don't really see Gordon being much better than Odegaard for me in my expectations over the next 5, even though I recognize there's a price difference. It's just that the price difference isn't something I'm going to be using, and I might as well just go Eze. Because what I would say is that you still have those like City, Nottingham Forest, and Liverpool games in the distance from Newcastle. The next 5 are great, but after that, it's actually like a generally poor run. Thank you so much for the super chat, Andrew. You've retracted the message, but I mean, I don't know if you want to put a message in chat, or you probably retracted the super chat anyway, so I couldn't see the question. I'm Eva. Thank you so much for being a member for 10 months. I'm actually going to quickly check Discord as well, because unfortunately I woke up a little bit later today, so I'll probably just need to reassess what's going on. Give me a second, please. Solanke could be on penalties today, though. That's pretty significant. Trying to look at and yeah, I'm trying to see if there's any sort of market updates in terms of like the Spurs expected lineups and stuff like that. Doesn't really seem like there's too much additional news on that, to be honest. I think most people think that still, from what I can see, that Spence, Gray, Dragusin, Porro will play. Austin will come in as a goalkeeper. They have a backup center back, but they're not going to play him. You're probably going to still see maybe Madison start, but I think Kulusevski, Johnson probably likely to start, Solanke likely to start, that sort of thing. That's what I can really see from all the predicted lineups and even from some of the sort of acclaimed Spurs reporters as well. Quickly check on Super Chat. Sorry, Daniel Smith. -4, Bruno and Gomez for Trent in. Who with Palmer, Salah, Gordon. Are you basically saying so who to replace Bruno with if you're going to bring Trent? So I guess I just need to quickly think about how much money you've got. I mean, look, Bruno to Gomez to Trent. What is the difference of that in terms of price? Let me just quickly calculate that. I mean, I'd probably just go for Eze, personally. If you can go for Eze, I'd go for Eze. If Eze is actually still a little bit too expensive for you, then I'd probably just go down to Sar. Or even Semenyo. Because I still think Semenyo is actually a really good pick. That, yeah, okay, fine. He's blanked a bit lately, but I still think he's actually a very consistent pick going forwards. And there's like no reason to really worry about him as a pick whatsoever. So, yeah. I can't imagine you can afford Mbumo, right? If you're going to squeeze that sort of cash as well. Because obviously Mbumo is like probably a really good long-term pick, but I have no idea whether you're actually going to squeeze... You can squeeze him in. Gordon's really solid too, if you can actually afford Gordon. So I'd probably start with, like, starting from this game week, I'd say Gordon's probably my favorite pick, just because the short-term fixtures are so good. Then I'd probably go down to Eze, then I'd go down to Semenyo, then I'd go down to Sar. So it really depends on how much money you have in the bank, but I'd go in that sort of order of priority based on price point. Sell Onana to which goalkeeper? I mean, if you want to sell a goalkeeper, I mean, you probably might as well just get a double game week goalkeeper now, right? You might as well go for Allison. You might as well go for Pickford. It's not a nice time to go for Pickford, if I'm being honest. Like, the next few games for Everton are still bad, right? Bournemouth away, Villa at home, Tottenham, and then Brighton. Like, these are teams where probably they're going to lose their clean sheet, but generally speaking, like 24 plus is a decent run of games for Everton. So like long term, you're probably going to get those clean sheets, and we've already seen that they've been able to get clean sheets versus top teams. So I mean that's I guess the perk of an Everton goalkeeper. But I think Alisson's still like the standout best pick. Do you think Eze will still be above Bruno if you consider penalties? I'm considering removing Oda next week. Yeah, but I mean, what is the consideration for, I guess, being so harsh on someone like Odegaard, for example, who is on penalties, right? Like if we want to talk about consideration of penalties, I feel like Odegaard has been the exact same asset that we've seen for most of the season. And the only thing that we know has changed is Saka has left the team and he's on right-sided corners when Nwaneri isn't playing, which obviously we established last match. And he is most likely the penalty taker of the team. The value of Odegaard is probably still something that, you know, either you see it or you don't see it with penalties, something like that. And obviously the low occasional chance of getting an open play goal, but it's still there. And the fixtures are still good for Arsenal. So I don't think he's like someone that I would rush to sell for a -4, but I can understand people getting annoyed from him. But I would say, if you look at, for example, someone like Anthony Gordon, right? He's been brilliant all season long and had really good underlying stats, but he also just recently has hit a purple patch, probably also prompted by fixtures. But a part of that too is also, you know, sometimes when you're holding on to a good pick and actually ultimately over a good run of games, you'll probably see the returns that you want from a certain asset, unless something has dramatically changed about how you view them. The reason why I'm not considering Luis Diaz is just minutes, right? At the end of the day, I can't guarantee like the minutes that I want from Luis Diaz, and I probably also want to save myself with making the best possible option for choosing the correct Liverpool midfielder or attacker or defender, who will round out that sort of third Liverpool spot within my team. And if it's going to be slot, then it could be slot as well. So that's kind of why I'm not really considering tripling up on Liverpool right now. Do you think Smith Rowe starts versus Ipswich? I actually think he does. Yogesh, thank you so much for the super chat. Mitoma to Mbeumo / Gordon -4. I don't really mind Mitoma to Gordon for a -4 personally. I actually think Gordon's a super strong pick. There's no leaks so far that I could see. A couple Spurs predicted lineups, but nothing crazy. With Oda, the issues that Arsenal team is competent to score without him. Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't really know what the point of that is, right? I just gave you the example where Newcastle were doing, I mean, they had multiple weeks where Gordon wasn't scoring, but you're going to be invested into teams. Like, people are still wanting to invest in, like, if you think about FPL ever, right? Going back multiple seasons, whenever you have a top team and a top offense, you're going to have multiple players who actually have routes towards goals, right? For example, you've seen Chelsea games where Madueke can score a poker. We've seen Jackson games where he scores a brace. We've seen Man City with Foden being quite key to the team. Recently, I guess it's Savio, right, who's actually taken a lot of the underlying basis. It's totally fine to be invested in a team that has multiple attackers, if the minutes of those attackers are good. Because at the end of the day, you're holding FPL picks for multiple game weeks on end, and you are probably going to give that player the chance to see out their average returns over that run, right? Because not everyone is going to, like, you know, if the market predicts Odegaard to score 40% of a goal versus Ipswich and he doesn't do that, that's fine, right? Because you know that in another week where maybe he's predicted only 20% to score a goal, that he could still score a goal, and suddenly he's sort of recouped what we on average expect from him, right? If he suddenly takes a penalty versus Brighton. So I still think Odegaard's a very solid pick for now. But I can understand if you want to, for example, move into, let's say, a Gordon, etc., that's fine. And personally, I think Bruno's lovely from 21 onwards. So I'll have a hard time sort of making that decision as to whether I sell, let's say, like, I think I could be doing Odegaard to Bruno in 21, but it's such a side grade move, and I would really have to make it on the maybe if, let's say, Odegaard plays really poor minutes versus Brighton, for example, or if Nwaneri plays on the right wing again, taking corners away from him for the whole game, because I think Nwaneri going forward shouldn't be playing that many minutes to sort of ruin Odegaard that much. Salam, thank you so much for your super chat. Enzo to Sarr or Odegaard to Gordon? I would still go Odegaard. I would still actually go Enzo to Sarr personally. I think Sarr is actually a really good long-term pick. And actually, personally, I think what's nice about Odegaard is you can always move towards another pick. Like, I would still hold Odegaard for the next 2 fixtures and then reassess, as opposed to someone like Enzo, where honestly, Enzo's next 2 games are actually really good. But at the same point, or rather, I think his fixture on 22 is good, right? But the way I see it, Sarr is just a much better pick than Enzo anyways, outright for like the next 6-7 game weeks. And the only time where Enzo's like basically better than Sarr is like really long down the line, which is probably, I think, don't Chelsea have like really good fixtures around 27-28? So yeah, I'd probably still do Enzo to Sarr Because I do appreciate the appeal of Gordon, particularly with this really hamstrung Spurs team with all the illness issues and clearly defensive issues anyways that they've been facing all season long. But yeah, I'd probably still go Sar. Dream Brother 22, Sobo Ball, do I accept a deep... I do actually remember you talking about Sobo, but to be honest, like, I mean, he's going to play this game, right? So you might as well actually just play Sobo now, and I would actually sell him next week. But yeah, I think you kind of need to accept defeat in the sense that he's going to be a sell, because I don't think Sobo's a particularly good pick. So would you start City defenders over Arsenal defenders this week? I actually would, yeah. If you're confident that City defenders will start, I would play them over Arsenal defenders for sure. Karen says, please help. I'm on a wild card. Vladimir Marson, Gabriel Castagna, Greaves, Rogers, Alanga, Watkins, Henderson, Aina. I mean, surely you want to have Isak and Gordon on a wild card, right? I would think. I just think that if I was on a wild card and I didn't have Trent, I'm kind of confused actually. So you don't have, I guess, are you assuming that Trent, Salah, Palmer are locks, or what's the situation here? Oh, you're just asking like a general question, like one set of players versus another set of players. Fine. I'm kind of confused though, because why do you have Vladimir Marson pit against Henderson? Because one player isn't starting, one player isn't. Are you rotating Henderson or something like that? I'd probably still back the second line of players. But I see no reason to actually go for Robinson over, let's say, Anderson or Castagna for now. I think I would actually still save the money, if anything. Or just get a better goalkeeper. Do you think Liverpool's best front three is more or less settled? I think it is more or less settled, but then you also got to think about the fact that slot just rotates anyways, right? So, for example, Jota is still going to come in at 65 minutes for a Gakpo or a Diaz. Darwin can still come in for like 15, 20 minutes. He's pretty useless, but they're probably still going to invest into another attacker in the market. That's probably maybe a big shout for me, right? If they can sell Darwin, I think they're probably going to trade him up for another attacker. But for now, I agree, yeah. The best front three is Gakpo, Diaz, Salah. And the only question I would say is that still the minutes are poor, right? Despite that. And so it's tough. Not too sure, but should I start Smith or Guardiola? I'd start Guardiola easily. Scared to play Dibbling ahead of Hall. Spurs injuries are insane. Then just play Hall if you're scared, honestly. I mean, once again, it's one of those effective ownership pieces, right? Human 97. Because if you think about it, you know Hall's ownership is probably going to be like 25, 30%. If you're worried about that, then that's obviously going to be significant. But I mean, Dibbling for me actually has a great game, so I would take that on probably. Vic, thank you so much for the super chat as well. Semenyo and Munoz. I'd play Semenyo personally. Palmer, Jackson are starting as well. Yeah, I'm totally fine with what you've done. Totally fine to start Jackson. I think he's still a really good pick. FPL Uproar. And sorry, David, I actually missed a super chat. Start Munoz or Ahmad. Can't decide myself. Yeah, I'll happily decide for you. I'd probably back the home fixture there, and I'll just start Munoz, right? Usually, I'd probably say just start the attacker, but I think it's a 50-50 call. I'd probably just start Munoz, I suppose, back the home fixture. Someone who also has really good underlying stats in open play as well. Vic, Semenyo, Munoz, yeah, I've answered that question. FPL Uproar, thank you so much for the super chat too. Jota or Enzo to Gordon or Murphy? I'd probably do Jota to Gordon, I would say. Because I think the benefit of Jota to Gordon, right, is you lock in a player for the next 5 to 6 game weeks who's got really good games and you don't have to worry about at all, right? Even though Jota can be good, he could be starting some games in the future, you're still not going to guarantee the amount of minutes that you really want from someone like Jota. Whereas with Gordon, you're spending enough money on someone who actually is really consistently good and has really good fixtures. And then I would say I suppose the upgrade from Enzo to Murphy is much less than the upgrade from Jota to Gordon is the way I see it based on minutes. Start Pedro or Eze. I would start Eze personally. I think Eze I would much rather my attacker face Chelsea than Arsenal. And I would sort of view it like that. Would you take a hit for Gordon if it means you can bench João Pedro? I don't think benching João Pedro is that good of a move, personally. Especially not for a hit. Like, if you wanted to naturally bench João Pedro, sure. Are the market odds predicting that Man United are going to be relegated this season? No, I don't think Man United will be relegated at all. Like, I'm pretty unbiased, right? The market always favors Man United, but even on team strength models, you'd never have Man United as a bottom 3 team. Like, sure, maybe they deserve to be within the bottom half right now, but no, they're not getting relegated. Ali says, needing a bit of help, please, mate. Is it worth holding Havertz or transferring out for Wood? I actually probably would hold Havertz for this game because it seems like he's actually been in training and I think he should start. I think crucially, one thing with Havertz that I would probably say is that Wood actually has a really good game in Game Week 22, but after that, it's actually a pretty poor run. Whereas if Havertz actually gets consistent minutes, I'd probably actually want to own Havertz over Wood, generally speaking. And you're already invested into Havertz, right? Like I moved into Wood from Cunha, who just has bad games, whereas you actually own Havertz, who actually has a really good set of games, and you might keep him for those set of games if his minutes remain really good. And the only reason why he missed the match last week, as far as we understand, is illness. So I would still probably keep the faith on Havertz for now. Chisel Planet, thank you so much for gifting 1 membership. Zoltar as well, congratulations. Zoltar actually someone who always comments on the YouTube videos as well, so really glad that you're getting membership. Those twins, but thanks again to Chisel Planet, and do shout them out. Those twins, thank you so much for your super chat. JP and Van Heck to Ina bench. Start JP and Ina Sar. If I'm being honest, I don't think Ina is a great move right now. I think there's much better defenders that I'd rather go to. Like if you don't want to own Van Heck, that's fine with me, right? Like it's not even a particularly good Van Heck game. So the way I see it is Hall for me is one of those budget picks who just has an exquisitely good run of games consistently, and actually thanks to the sort of, I guess, boost from the Spurs news, is probably actually quite a decent pick for this game week. So I think if you can go to Hall, I'd go for that. If you wanted to save a bit of money as well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with really going for, let's say, an Aston Villa defender as well. Like if you really wanted a good defender for this game week who actually has a good fixture, Konsa is right there for you as well. Like he's actually a pretty strong pick. Even Dean as well, if you want to kind of spend that money. I think if you actually look at the Ina fixtures outside of 22, I generally just think it's a really poor run for Ina. Like he might be a good sort of set and forget type of player, but I don't think Ina's too far off of, let's say, an Aston Villa defender if you can kind of rotate. But at the end of the day, I'd much rather like Hall and Munoz over Ina for this run, especially since Ina's 5.2, right? If you were someone who was invested into Ina at 4.5 and you own him at 4.7 or 4.8, whatever your team value of Ina is, that's a bit different to owning Ina at 5.2 and he's actually like very similar to, let's say, other picks that can actually still leave you money in the bank to make better moves. So that's kind of how I would address that situation. Will Sanchez start? I think he starts. Should I buy Robinson and play instead of Hall? I really don't see the value of buying Robinson at 5.1, right? Is he 5.1 or is he 5.0? I still don't. I still think I'd probably not go for Robinson. I'd probably actually go for Anderson, and just save the money. If you don't believe that, let's say Castagna will keep his spot. Sorry, unfortunately, I'm just going to time out people who use all caps in chat or spam. So, just the regular policy. Is Son benched? The prediction is that Son is benched. I'm not sure if that's going to be Aaron. I would not say that the prediction is a leak though. Start Enzo, João Pedro. I'd probably still start João Pedro. Start Kirkes or Sar. I'd actually start Kirkes. Throwbacks father says, good morning, Fran. Timber to Trent and Johnson to McGinn, or Johnson to Eze and hold your second free transfer. I mean, I've got to be honest. I don't really like McGinn as a pick. I know McGinn has a great game, but other than that, I don't really like McGinn as a pick. How much is McGinn though? You're buying him because he's cheap, right? Honestly, I'd probably just go for Jacob Murphy, right? At that rate, I'd probably just punt on someone who actually at least is consistently within a good attacking position game to game. So I'd probably just punt on Jacob Murphy, because at least, you know, in theory, right, a consistently playing Jacob Murphy for the next 5 weeks is going to be much better than a consistently playing McGinn. So I'd probably just punt on that. Whereas McGinn, it's like after this game week, I don't even care if McGinn plays football, frankly. Well, maybe like, you've still got those West Ham and Ipswich games, but I'm obviously making a joke. Would you start Anderson or João Pedro? I'd probably start Anderson. Close call though. Especially if I owned Arsenal defense, I'd probably start Anderson. Fran, read my comment. Bench 1, Ina, Colwell, Robinson, Gabriel. I'd probably bench. I'm leaning Colwell, to be honest, on the bench. Yeah, I'd lean Colwell bench. Bruno or Hall. Don't forget to push the like button. Correct, Kim. Thank you so much. Do subscribe, do like. That really does help. I have to play Ahmad because of Roger, so I just transfer to Murphy. I don't think you need to transfer to Murphy. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got Ahmad for Southampton at home next. So I think using a transfer on some of those budget players is probably not worth it ever. Yeah, I'd bench Colwell versus Crystal Palace. I mean, it's an away game at the end of the day. Madison has been really frustrating. I mean, he's got a decent chance of starting because everyone's sick, but I really couldn't tell you. I've never liked Madison's minutes because for me, my conception of Ange is that Madison isn't someone who deserves to start every match. And I've never, I guess, backed Madison as a pick. So my natural inclination is that Madison's bench, but if Son is benched, Werner comes in, you could still play. I would still expect Kulusevski, Bentancur, Sarr in the midfield, and Brennan Johnson on the right. So I would actually still expect that Madison's benched. Colwell or Hall? I'd play Hall at this point. Just bank on the fact that Spurs are missing players and hope for the best. I'd say, you know. Excuse me. Vice captain Foden or Isak? I'd probably still go for Isak with all that sort of, you know, positive Spurs news, really. Do we sell Madison for Gordon? I probably would do that. I think that's a really strong move. At the end of the day, you're gambling with Madison minutes every single day, whereas is Bentancur suspended? I guess they have to play Bergvall, right? Would you play Bergvall or would you play? I mean, you kind of need someone deep lying, and what you're gonna play? I guess Bergvall could play. Why sell Lewis? What do you mean by sell Lewis? Like, you mean why I sold Lewis to Munoz? Is that your question? Enzo or Ahmad, I'd start Enzo. Start Lewis or Enzo, I'd start Lewis. Cunha plus Timber out for Trent plus Raul JP. I think that's fine. I think that's a good move. Yeah, the reason why I sold Rico Lewis is ultimately I just don't rate the Man City defense, and I didn't really want to gamble on minutes. And I think Munoz is just a better pick long term, so I just wanted to be invested from a price kind of change direction. And I thought he had a better game last week too. So yeah, Bergvall, Bissouma. I mean, they're probably. I still think that Dragusin and Gray might start. Just because people miss training doesn't mean that they'll, I guess, miss the match. It's unlikely that every single person that missed training is going to miss the match, right? And that they'll field like every under 21 kid possible. Is Colwell a long-term hold? I think he can be a sell, but I wouldn't say. I would not disagree to the idea that he's a long-term hold. I think Kwanzaa starts, honestly. I think Kwanzaa starts. But after this game week, I think he's probably going to start. You know, he's going to be just straight back to the bench. Start Robinson or Hall? I'd start Robinson easily. If you had a few free transfers, would you transfer to Odegaard? Interesting question. I would say I would probably be still transferring Odegaard in 22. So yeah, I'd probably not be selling Odegaard. It's a little bit infuriating to watch Odegaard now, but I think right now, Solanke doesn't have good fixtures, so I have no want to really, you know, have him in the striker position. Maybe I want Jesus, but that doesn't really. I'm not blocked from going for Jesus, right? So fine with me. Yeah, I'd probably be still holding Odegaard up until 21. Would you start Hall or Sarr? I'd still start Sarr. Should I start Hall or Saliba this week? I'd still start Saliba personally. Just backing those Arsenal clean sheet odds. -4 Rodgers to Gordon, bench Enzo. I don't really think that's really worth it. I mean, if you're going to bench Enzo, you might as well just -4 out of Enzo, who's a worse pick than Rodgers. Owning Odegaard must be like owning Madison. I disagree. My player plays 87 minutes of football and does nothing, and Madison does, I guess, something, and only 15 minutes of football. Hey Fran, start 2 Semenyo, João Pedro, Bruno. I'd play Semenyo, João Pedro. Start Dibbling or Enzo. I'd actually still take the chance and start Dibbling here. I think that's actually a pretty fun opportunity to play Dibbling versus a really poor defense. Thomas says, would you take Bowen out for a hit? I have to start. Yeah, I would, just because he's injured for a long time. Yeah, I would take him out for a hit, 100% in this situation. How's the Spurs defense lineup? I mean, Isak captain. I think it's, you know what? Let's do a poll, actually. I think a lot of people are actually interested in the Isak captaincy. All right, whilst the poll is going, I think I did miss a couple of messages as well. Start Hall or Anderson. I'd start Anderson. Ait Nouri versus Porro. I'd still start Ait Nouri easily because Porro's just probably going to get demolished by Newcastle. Nick says, hey, Fran, I think you're playing Hall instead of Ahmad. I think that's perfectly fine, Nick, especially with the Spurs news. Totally fine. The markets have sort of responded in the same direction as well, if you're interested. Other questions like Robinson versus Hall, I would definitely go Robinson. Bruno versus Hall, I'd probably start Bruno in that situation. I still think I'd start most of the attackers versus, like, let's say a Hall this week, just because Spurs are still a good offense. Why Isak Vice? Just because of all the Spurs news, really. Felipe says, hi, Fran, is João Pedro starting lock instead of a defender like Aina Hall? I personally would start João Pedro, but I'm sure a lot of people will start Lewis Hall over João Pedro, and that's fine. But yeah, it's my preference to do that because I still think that the clean sheet odds are still relatively low despite all the really poor Spurs news. The Spurs news is that only 7 first team players were in training yesterday, and a lot of the expectation is that the lineup today is going to be like, you know, a couple under 21 players within the team. You know, Fraser Forster isn't starting. Other players might be sick. There's a couple suspensions as well. Napstars, thank you so much for the super chat. Hi, Fran. Bench 2, Munoz, Hall, Guardiola, Semenyo, João Pedro. I would play Guardiola, Semenyo for sure. I would play João Pedro for sure. So I would bench Munoz and Hall. Obviously, I'd bench them in the same order that I have done. Kirk is versus Hall. I think Kirk is a super easy start. I mean, whenever you get to start versus Everton, you know, I would play my defender versus Everton every week, and I would take that chance every time. Even though I did that versus Everton with Lewis, and it failed. If you still had Lewis, would you start? Yeah, I would. Eze or Sarr, I would still go Eze personally for, you know, things like set pieces. Still, at the end of the day, the historical underlyings are very strong. Sarr obviously has had a better season so far on underlyings, and he's actually just in general had, I would say, what I would call a breakout season, right? Because his performance levels in League 1 were really poor, whereas now he's, I mean, the underlyings, the minutes as well that he's playing, super good. I would still go for Eze though, just for the maybe like 5-10% chance that he's on penalties over Mateta, particularly when Mateta doesn't play, and then just for the set pieces and all those kind of additional sort of helpful aspects for bonus. It will be a Martinelli. I'd go Martinelli. Start Colwell or Kirkes for sure. Will Sanchez start? I think he does, mate. I think he does. Ahmad or Sarr? I would start Sarr. I no interest really in starting someone who plays versus Liverpool. Unless you had to, right? Start Hall or Colwell. I'd probably go with Hall, just based on that kind of Spurs news. Start Milenkovic or Munoz. I'd still start Milenkovic. Hit the like button for the algo. Absolutely. Please do. Castagna or Lewis. I would still go for Castagna, actually, just for the, I mean, it's for the most part, been a very blunt offense, and Castagna is a pretty attacking defender as well. Is Maddison starting? I mean, I've seen some predictions of him starting, some not. At the end of the day, he's not super high in priority, I guess, for starting under Ange, but I'm sure he can still start. I have no confirmation on it. I've seen different lineups and different predictions. I've seen quite a few predictions where people think Bergvall will just play instead, and you'll have Sarr and Kulusevski in that sort of pivot up top. But yeah, sell Semenyo for Mbumo. I think that's fine as a move. As a long-term move, I think that's fine. Especially if you're not losing anything in that same direction, right? You're just spending money. I think that's fine. Wood or Evan Nelson or Jesus? I'd probably go Jesus. Start Strand Larson or Enzo. I would probably start, I mean, it is Strand Larson versus Nottingham Forest at home. I mean, you can't even guarantee that Strand Larson necessarily starts, right? I mean, I guess you could because Cunha's out. Like, who else can they play? Yeah, I'd probably still start Strand Larson. You know, take the chance that Cunha's out. Who knows? Maybe 10-15 minutes of the game he could be on penalties if, let's say, Juan gets subbed off. Lewis or Gabriel? I'd play Lewis. Bench Sarr, Hall, or Enzo? I'd still bench Hall in that situation. Do I start Sarr or Luis Diaz? I'd still start Luis Diaz. I think he's going to start versus United. Hall or Mikolenko? Hall for me. Sell Bruno for Gordon? I think that's a fine move. Afternoon, Fran. Selling Bowen and Cunha. You've got 4 options. Your latest decision is Gordon and Wood, Jesus. I do love Gordon and Jesus. I think that's a good move. Do you have a say on Madison? I personally think he's. I guess my inclination is that he's benched. Rumors Son and Madison benched. I think that's correct. I mean, Son's just been playing poorly. Apparently, might be ill. Yeah. Start Saliba or Ahmad, I'd probably still start Saliba. Start Hall or João Pedro. I'm personally going for João Pedro, but if you want to go for Hall, you want to bank on the, I guess, like the attacking element of Hall as well, then why not? If Son is out, then it is safe to assume that Solanke takes penalties. I would say so, yeah. I agree. Hey, Fran, start Munoz or João Pedro, and why? I would just start João Pedro at the end of the day because, look, Chelsea's still a really good offense. They're probably still going to break the clean sheet of Munoz. And at that point, you're kind of just matching up whether João Pedro is going to do better from an attacking point of view versus Munoz. Not to mention that Munoz can obviously lose negative points as well for conceding goals, right? So, because I expect that to be the case too, I just think João Pedro's quite a simple, safe play as a 95-minute attacker on pens. Should I risk it and captain Haaland? Your rank is 2.8 million. I mean, you still own Haaland, so yeah, I probably would. I mean, you know the risks. I'm sure you've taken the risks before. I would sell Haaland after this week, but yeah, for this week, I'd probably captain Haaland. The poll's done, so everyone's still most likely going for a Salah captaincy, but quite a lot of late surges for Isak captaincy, so which I totally appreciate based on the news. Play 2 KDB, Sar, Evan Nilsson. I'd probably play KDB and Evan Nilsson. Any leaks? Not that I could see right now, unfortunately. Apparently, someone who's a leaker. I really don't know if this is a true leaker. I would say that apparently people are saying that Madison and Son have been dropped. John Long says bench, sells, or Flecken. I'm starting Larson this game week. I guess Larson doesn't. I mean, I would probably bench Flecken because Sells plays for so much more of a better defense. But if you're going to start Larson, you might as well just start Flecken as well. I think it's very close, right? Like Flecken and Sells are. It's close enough where I think you can make that sort of emotional, not even an emotional decision, but like a rational decision to, you know, hope that one of the outcomes from Strand Larson's point of view is positive, which also means that that forces a negative outcome on Sells, right? So I'd probably actually bench Sells in your case. Thank you, Chisel Planet, for moderating. Appreciate that. Start Pedro or Lewis. I'd probably start Lewis. Start Semenyo or Fernandes. I'd start Semenyo. I missed your super. I'm so sorry about that, MW. Thanks for reaching out. Start Semenyo / Madueke. I don't think Madueke actually starts this week personally, so I'd start Semenyo easily. And then the question on Burn / Vandenberg, I'd start. I mean, Vandenberg, I don't even know if Vandenberg's necessarily going to start. I'd probably start Burn, honestly. I mean, Brentford's defense have been shocking this season, right? Like honestly shocking to the degree where a Southampton away fixture isn't even a particularly good look on them. So yeah, I would take the opportunity and just play Burn. Yeah, I think Madueke could easily get benched. So yeah, the way I would play it is like that. Dream Brother says Sobo to Jacob Murphy, still 5k OR, amazing OR. I mean, I guess if you're looking for picks around that price point, I think Jacob Murphy isn't an awful pick. At the end of the day, how much is Sobo? I'm not really sure. I mean, he's 6.3, right? I still think that Semenyo is one of the best picks in class. If you can guarantee Jacob Murphy starting for the next 5-6 matches, fine, go Jacob Murphy. I can't necessarily do that because I still think Barnes is a super relevant player, but you know, there's going to be a little bit more rest for Newcastle between the games, so it probably allows for someone a little bit more, I guess, I would say less fit, arguably, like Jacob Murphy, to be able to play those games if that is like the very consistent starting 11 that Newcastle is playing well within. So yeah, if you want to go Murphy, go for it. I still think Semenyo is really good. Even Sarr I think is really good as well. And if you can push towards Eze, I would just go Eze. But those are my thoughts. Murphy totally fine, but you have to kind of have that faith in minutes. Porro for Castagna, I think. Are you saying you're going Castagna for Porro? Right? I think that's a great move. Should I start Munoz or Konsa? I would start Konsa quite easily for anyone. Watkins Hall, I think Watkins is a great pick still, but once again, it's one of those cases where if you own Isak and then you're suddenly moving into Watkins, that's going to fundamentally change your team structure. So if you've got a little bit more free transfers, I think that helps it a little bit. Dan, thank you so much for the super chat. Start 1 and bench 1. Strand Larson, João Pedro. I'd still probably bench Strand Larson at the end of the day. I do really like my penalties and banking in those minutes that are always guaranteed from João Pedro, especially with the 2 strikers out. Fran, Ahmad or Hall? I'd probably play Hall. Hall or Lewis? I'd play Lewis. Start Ahmad or Munoz? I'd probably start Munoz just for the home aspect. Start Sarr or João Pedro? I'd probably actually start João Pedro still. Matt Foe says, morning Fran, would you take a -4 for Cunha to Wisa for a 1-week punt? Why is it a 1-week punt though? I guess is my question. Are you wildcarding next week, or what's the situation here? If anyone could actually like as well, if you haven't liked the stream, that would really help support the stream and the channel as well. Do subscribe. But going back to your question, I think in terms of like cheap 1-week punts in that sort of striker position, if you're going down from Cunha, if you're blocked from Wood and Jesus, fine, go for Wisa. But I still think actually, like, if I was probably evaluating all the games, Raul's quite tempting. Wisa probably is going to play. You know what? If it's really a 1-week punt, go Wisa. Go for it. But my only question is, why is it a 1-week punt? Ahmad to Mbumo for a -4. I don't mind it so much if that's just like one free transfer. I mean, not a free transfer, obviously a hit, but if you're planning to hold Mbumo for the long term, yeah, sure. Hey Fran, bring in Gordon for Enzo or Odegaard. I mean, I'd bring Gordon in for Enzo for sure. Would you sell Timber to Castagna or roll and start Munoz? I'd probably actually do the Castagna move. Kim, thank you so much. Start Bruno or Pedro? I'd still probably go Pedro. Any city leagues? It's a good question. Let me have a look into it. Oh my god, guys. I think that's actually a Newcastle leak. Apparently, Botman's back. So, for the person who actually had Dan Burn, I'd probably start Vandenberg. Maybe. So, I hope that's interesting news. That's from one of the Newcastle leakers. I don't know whether they're like 100% correct all the time, but yeah, pretty significant actually. No city leaks that I can see though. I think the city lineup was probably going to look quite similar to the one last time out, but I don't know if KDB's like 100% going to start. right? Because fitness is always an issue with KDB that I can't really do. What would you do with Son? I'd probably sell him to someone like Gordon, to be honest. Odegaard to Diaz or Gordon for free. I'd probably go Gordon if you really want to make a move from Odegaard. I'm still going to keep Odegaard personally. Thoughts on Son trying to hold on? Yeah, I mean, like, for me, the issue with Son is just performance related, right? Like, he's not even getting the minutes that you want from him. It's not even the case that, like, if Son was playing every single match 90 minutes and he looked awful and the manager was still backing him, then sure. But if he's getting benched for a match like Newcastle, then, you know, to be honest, he's going to be a sell. Fran, how's your mental health because United? I don't even support United, so totally fine. I support Real Madrid. Is Timber a sell in the near future? I think he is. Only because if you think about the next few game weeks and just generally the landscape, right? Munoz and Hall are very good picks. Fulham defense is really good, and they're all cheaper than Timber. And we probably all own Gabriel. Now, if you don't own Gabriel, I think still holding Timber is fine. As far as, let's say, the idea of just Timber plus Gabriel, I can understand him being a sell, especially for, you know, a Konate in the future for the double. Or just, once again, the idea that you can get so much value now from Hall, Munoz, and Fulham defenders that you don't really need super elite defenders for super extravagant prices. So if you have, let's say, Trent and Gabriel, that's, like, for me, in my team, I think I'm already pushing it. But I'm pushing it because I have that sort of Saka cash. Whereas other people don't really need to do that. I missed a lot of super chat. Sorry about that. Sorry, I was just looking at the leaks. Joseph, start Mitoma, Munoz, Hall. I mean, this Mitoma game is actually honestly pretty bad. And he was benched last week. So I actually would assume that he's going to start now. I would probably go Mitoma, then Hall, then Munoz in that order still. Because I still think that Mitoma is going to start. But if you really want to go Hall, then Mitoma, then Munoz, I think you can do that. I would still put Munoz at the back of my bench, though. Alps, thank you so much for being a member for the last 5 months as a manager as well of the channel. Why Isak vice captain over Palmer? I guess, first of all, Spurs have had so many sort of potential lineup issues, right? Like Paul O'Keefe, who is basically what I would call a Spurs insider in terms of he's trusted to have information over Spurs, and he has that, and he's already basically suggested that the lineup is going to be quite horrific for today, and that he doesn't want to be on the timeline. So that already suggests a little bit of rotation in place. And I guess the truth of the news of how not many people were training and a lot of people are sick for the Spurs team. So I think that has a natural impact on, you know, Isak looking like a better pick. And ultimately, I guess Tottenham are a much worse defense than, let's say, Crystal Palace. So if you're telling me that the Spurs lineup is suddenly worse than it already was, like, let's say, last week or the last few weeks, then I'll probably take the Isak vice captain for that. Dylan or Dill, thank you so much for the super chat. Bench Kirkes, Lewis, Castagna, or Saliba. I would personally bench Saliba, right? Kirkes, Everton, take that all day. Lewis, I still think he starts for West Ham, and it's a home match, so I'll take that. And Castagna, Ipswich at home, take that as well. A4K2P, Captain Watkins or Palmer start. I mean, if you really want to captain one of the... If you don't want to captain Salah, I would personally captain Watkins, because I think Leicester is there for the taking. Right? I still think, like Watkins is going to play effectively 90 minutes versus Leicester at home. I would take that. So I'd go there. Start Sarr or JP. I'd go JP personally. Salah, thank you so much for being a member for 4 months. Chisel Planet as well, member for 15 months. Absolute legend. Fran, do you think Liverpool Man United will get postponed? And if so, do we look at... Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why I've already said this in chat is I would still captain Salah because I still think he's the best pick in theory. But your vice captain should really be someone who plays within a London game. So, for example, like today, you have the Newcastle match in the Spurs Stadium. So, I mean, Isak's first game, you're going to get that out of the way. It's not going to get suspended because it's the first game. We would already know if it was getting suspended. So, yeah, I think Isak's a very easy vice captain on that basis. And do I actually think he'll get suspended? I don't think so. But I think there's probably a 10-15% chance, right? Because you can't really predict how bad the snow is. And Liverpool are going to react probably tomorrow morning. Because, like, I mean, the game is, what, 4:30? So they probably can make a decision, like, on the morning tomorrow, whether they need to suspend the game because of travel disruptions. Salah, thank you for your super chat. GW20 team sells Aina Robinson. Okay, a lot of Nottingham Forest. Robinson, Gabriel, Mbumo, Salah, Palmer, Sarr, Wood, Isak, Watkins. Very strong team, actually. I do like Watkins. Hall, Ahmed, Kobel on the bench. I think that's fine. Bench order looks good as well. Start Hall or Aina. I would still start Aina personally. Yeah, I mean, Nothing wrong with doubling up on a defense. I think it's still a reasonably good game for Nottingham Forest. And I mean, it's a Cunha-less Wolves team as well, so why not? That's probably how I'd go about it myself. Nice team, though. I mean, Watkins is a super luxury player that I wish I could have. Hall or Dunk as first player. I think Hall definitely first bench, Kim, in that situation. Not worth taking a punt on Hall over Castagna. I mean, I'm just not sure why it's a punt. Like, I mean, what's the value of the punt, right? Are we saying Castagna is a really poor attacker? I don't think that's necessarily the case. He's at home. He's playing for a better defense still. And versus a much weaker offense at the end of the day. Snow will peak in Liverpool in the morning. What do you mean, like Sunday morning? Yeah, but that's going to have like impacts for the rest of the day, right? Because it's all about travel disruption and stuff like that. Henry, thank you so much for being a member of 33 months. Amazing win yesterday. Pretty close nail biter as well. Love to see you around. Hope you're well. Someone's captaining Isak. I think, look, if you really want to go there, I think it's fine. Like, the markets have already reacted really positively and strongly towards the Spurs news. So if you're like really invested into, I guess, how bad the Spurs lineup could be, then why not? You know, I think that's pretty cool that a lot of people are making that decision. Enzo or Rico Lewis? I'd personally go Rico Lewis. Fran, I mean, like, for example, I went Palmer last week, right? So I mean, like, I've already been hurt, but it's not like I'm not ready to get hurt again. Like, next week I'm probably gonna get hurt by Salah. Who cares? And I'll be captaining Palmer once again. But I think still this week, because of the home and away aspect, and I still think Spurs are fielding what should be a relatively decent team. Maybe Maddison and Son are bench, but I don't think that really impacts the defense, if I can say that. So yeah. Tanai says start 2 Kirkes, Ahmed, João Pedro, Odegaard. You need to start 2 out of 5. I mean, I'd start Kirkes and Odegaard probably. Yeah, those are the 2 players I'd probably start. Bench Hall or Vandenberg. I'd bench Vandenberg easily. Or Odegaard to Gordon is tempting. Yeah, if you want to go for it, I think actually it's like a nice window to jump onto, right? Because probably Gordon has a better game than Odegaard now, whereas Odegaard has a better game next week, and it's just about flip-flopping these kind of Spurs games. I can't see any City leaks for now, so that's that. Bench Sar, Mateta, Semenyo. I mean, I'd just bench I'd probably bench Mateta. FPL Rohit says, hey, Fran, would you suggest Foden to Gordon for free or roll transfer? Actually, sorry, I wouldn't bench Mateta. I'd bench Sar. Hey, Fran, would you suggest Foden to Gordon for free or roll transfer? I mean, Foden honestly didn't play very well last match. And his minutes could be shaky. Yeah, I'd probably go for Gordon, honestly. I'd go for Gordon because you can back his minutes and you can't really back Foden. Plus, honestly, that's going to free up some cash for you as well. And you're jumping onto a really good Gordon game with the sort of latest Spurs news. Start Enzo or João Pedro. I'd probably start João Pedro. Murphy starts. I'd imagine that Murphy starts. He's just been playing really well. Go against the world. Captain Palmer instead of Salah. I mean, I did that last week, right? You guys want to see the impacts of that? This is what happens sometimes when you go against I guess the king, as they say. Fun, super fun. I'll do it again. That was depressing. All right, so back to showing that lovely team I've got. Guardiola, Lewis, Enzo, or Hall. I mean, I personally wouldn't take this fixture as one to go against Salah, right? Like, I think Man United at home is so much more of a better game than Crystal Palace away. So it's and Salah is ultimately better. Can you repeat the leaks? We don't really have any leaks. It's just Botman starts. Apparently some Tottenham sort of interesting. Sorry, so just looking into the news, we know that Botman starts, which probably means that Burn is benched. And then when it comes to, let's say, City, I haven't seen any leaks there. When it comes to Newcastle and Tottenham, the suggestion is that Maddison and Son are benched. Nabade, thank you, Fran. You are the very best. Your content is highly refreshing and differential. Thank you so much. Happy New Year to you as well. And have a lovely game week. Why Salah over Isak captaincy? Just the home aspects and Salah just being the better pick, like outright. Burn starts. Why does Burn start? Surely Lewis Hall. Wait, is Shar suspended? Is Shar suspended? Surely not, right? Oh, Shar suspended? Okay, fine. Yeah. That's my bad then. I actually forgot that Shar was suspended. Good luck. I literally missed the deadline, honestly. That was... Okay. Well, that's that. That's the deadline, guys. We just let the clock run out. Am I getting Haaland? Not anytime soon. Probably not until 29. Or maybe never. Fran, do you think I should keep Sar in for the 1 week or play Hall instead? I mean, I would have probably played Hall. I probably would have played Sar actually this week anyways. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining the stream. If you guys could like the stream, that would really help. And then just subscribe to the channel to see more content. Really proud of my cheat sheet series. So if there's anything you haven't seen from me in terms of like long form videos before, I'd encourage looking at the cheat sheet. Haaland is a waste of money. Don't do it, anybody. Oh, to be honest, I'm actually getting there. I mean, I probably have gotten there, right? Like I've not considered Haaland for one bit the last few game weeks. It's just not. Like the baselines have just dropped, right? Isak is outperforming him on baselines. You have other strikers who are close. You've got 2 midfielders who are outperforming him in expected goal involvement per 90. Yeah, Haaland is, for the most part, unfortunately, a dead pick. Good luck, everyone. Thank you guys so much. Kim, deadline is here. Chisel Planet, good luck. Thanks, Sebastian. And Victor as well. Nice weekend as well. Top stream. Thank you guys for joining. You'll finish within 5k for sure. Thank you, Navide. I really appreciate that. Hopefully we do. Unfortunately, like brutal outcomes like the Palmer Captaincy sort of take me a little bit further away from that. But we will strive towards hopefully getting another top 10k finish. And that's it. Thank you guys so much as usual. Hope you guys have a lovely weekend. I'm actually off to meet FPL Consult for lunch. So I don't know if anyone's watched his videos before, but yeah, really nice guy and he's in London. So I'm going to catch up with him and probably watch the Spurs game there. Otherwise, take care. I'll see you guys soon.